viewers. Welcome to this Tuesday's Facebook Live. We're going to give a few minutes for people to jump on the live stream here before we start talking about major stuff.
People are starting to populate and come on in. Hello world is a song that we're singing. Come on, get happy. Happy Teacher Appreciation Day, everyone, and happy Teacher Appreciation Week. That goes for everyone out there. Our ESPs, our moms, our dads, our grandparents, our aunts, uncles, our child caregivers, everybody that's serving as a teacher in some capacity or another. Nowadays, we celebrate you this week, so thank you for everything that you're doing, both at school, at home, through Zoom, through EDSB, through all of the different platforms that we're using. You guys have been thoroughly amazing throughout all of this. So thank you for everything that you do and continue to do for your students. Once you guys start getting in the room here, feel free to queue up a question that you might have. Stephanie, I'm going to begin with the idea that once again, we're going to reiterate that teachers control the grades that they assign their students. Okay, it's always been that way and it continues that way. Yet we are all working to make sure that we're doing what we can for all of the students that we have and that we're meeting their needs. And when we have a student that might have a little bit of a challenge here through e-learning, that we're reaching out the best that we can and finding every possible way and lifting up every rock to find ways to meet the needs of those kids and getting those kids to do some of the work. Very important that we understand that teachers assign grades, and you have your entire grade book. You have 8 months of work that you've seen from students, so you have a good idea of what they have. Was it 8 months? Maybe a little less than 8 months. I'm an English teacher, so I guesstimate that.
6 one way, half dozen. Yeah.
Right. So you do have a portfolio, so to speak, of work from the student over the school year. So you should be taking all of these different factors into consideration as you are making determinations for grades for students. Stephanie?
But we do, again, want to reiterate, because some of you have asked, while we think you should employ the utmost flexibility with kids, keeping in mind they all have different family situations and different technology situations, you still are responsible for that grade, and there will be kids who simply don't engage, no matter how much you've tried to contact the family, no matter how much your student services people or your administrative staff. There will be some kids that don't engage. You are not barred from failing kids who have determined by their actions that they're going to fail. Again, be as flexible as possible, give kids as many opportunities as you can. Vary those opportunities if technology or different situations are an issue, but we have definitely gotten the feedback from the school district that, we know there's still going to be kids that fail. There would have been kids that failed with brick and mortar schools open. So we just want to make sure we're being flexible and responsive to family situations and the like. So keep doing what you're doing, but again, grades remain your purview. If your principals or APs seem to be saying something else, certainly you can reach out to them from the CTA perspective, or again, if you've tried and have not been successful, do let us know. And as you all know who've been part of our Facebook Live, our staff are working. We are doing that. For the most part, our staff is remote. Rob and Paula and I are here in the office today, but our staff is remaining remote for about another week and a half. We'll kind of be back here more fully, but they are taking calls every day and emails, so they will certainly help you as quickly as they can.
Speaking a little bit more about grades, as a classroom teacher, I would look at some of the outliers. If you've had a student that's really struggled all year and they're still struggling now, I would imagine that their grade is pretty much the same as they've had in the first, second, and third 9 weeks. If you have a student that maybe was being very successful, maybe earning A's and B's, or something that you know is their standard, and all of a sudden there's a huge drop-off, well, here's an opportunity during e-learning to kind of reach out to that kid and see what they're not doing and how we could still make them successful even in the fourth 9 weeks. Conversely, I would even look at students that maybe were doing poorly, but then all of a sudden now, here through e-learning, there's a tick up, they're doing more work, and that's something you want to notice as well, and make sure that their grade is assigned appropriately based upon all of this. So you, as the educational expert, have the ability to assign grades, but you're taking in all of these different factors, I would say, in determining what their grade would be. So we're going to take some questions in a minute. I have a... Sure. We do know that the district expects that we'll be teaching all the way till the last day of school. So you should be planning for that all the way between now and the end of May, having lessons prepared for your students to do. There's no, we're going to take a week off and just do the ketchup mustard thing and just try to get kids caught up on what they're doing. We're consistently asking you to find ways to make sure the kids can catch up if they're falling a little bit behind. But we are offering new assignments each and every week for our students, and the expectation is that we're going to teach all the way up until the last day of school.
Do keep in mind, last day of school can be different. So for those of you who are teaching seniors, the last official day for seniors is May 19th. For those of you who have, and I just would note for the record, I know a number of kids, a number of high school students, not seniors, are signing up for HCC classes this summer. And so although say a junior or a sophomore is going to continue in your classes till the end of May, HCC is starting May 18th. AP exams will also take place for those high school kids who are taking them beginning May 18th. So if you have kids in AP classes and if you have kids maybe doing dual enrollment with HCC this summer, in those last 2 weeks, you may need to show a little bit more flexibility just in scheduling. But official last day for seniors is May 19th. Otherwise, we're going to the end. So,
Segueing into that, we have a question about what is the deadline for students to turn in work for quarter four?
What is the deadline for students to turn in work for the fourth quarter? Paula, is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I would accept work all the way up until the last day of school, especially if it's going to help those kids and those outliers that we spoke to. I know it does put a little pressure on us as the classroom teacher of kind of getting those assignments graded and then finishing up and getting our report cards. But I would say our best practice is allowing those students till the last day of school to hand in their work. I would hate to have students that are just going to hand you every single thing from the 4th 9 weeks during that time. I would make your expectations very clear with the students about what you will expect up until that last day of school. But I would allow them to bring things in up until that last day.
Okay, we also have a question. Do we think that the sites will be open for ESY?
We know that the district is considering their options. And I think a lot will depend on how things go with Florida phasing in reopening over the course of the next month or so. The Department of Ed, in very limited guidance, they have put out, well, it's actually, I shouldn't say Department of Ed. It was Governor DeSantis's task force, and there were some task force members specifically looking at education. I would not say the guidance is heady. They've put out 2 paragraphs of guidance, but one of those paragraphs did say that they're hoping that schools can potentially return to in-person situations for some ESY, just in the event we have to bring kids up to speed or have specific interventions for some of our kids who have fallen behind. So again, I think our district will be keeping that in mind, but I don't expect probably to have a definitive answer for another couple weeks. If that changes, we will certainly let you guys know as soon as we know. Again, I think the hope is they can open for brick and mortar buildings.
Okay. Should you be required to spend the limited amount of time that you have to get in and clean up your classroom, gather your stuff, etc.? Should you also have to spend some of that time printing out IEPs?
Well, I would say to the extent that you are an ESE teacher and you need certain IEP related information, you may have to split some time. But let me, just for those of you, because we've had a lot of varied stories on getting in to close up your classrooms. So let us share with you what we know and also what we would suggest if you have a challenge. So number one, I know principals are trying to set up sort of schedules so that they don't have an overload of people all at once. We know they are trying to limit people from outside the building where they can, just for, again, the same reasons, provide social distancing as well as, just limit the number of outside people in a building. And we know things have varied from getting 3 to 4 hours to having a whole day. So what people have asked is, what if you can't do what you need to do in 3 hours? If under the best of circumstances you can't do that, and believe me, I understand if I had to pack up my office in 3 hours, it wouldn't be pretty. But first thing to do is talk to your principal and say, hey, here's my challenge. And this goes for those of you who might have to do something else while you're at the school site. If you've got to basically handle your job in an ESE role, and that's going to take you away from actually packing up your classroom, then absolutely, it is perfectly legitimate to tell your principal, I'm going to need more time. When can we set that up so that it works within the school schedule? Again, every school's got a little bit of a different setup into how close you are or how much you can be in your room and not around other people. So just work with your admin. Same is true for, if you know you're moving schools, and so you're not just moving out some of, your basic stuff, but you're packing up everything you own, that's going to take longer than if you're just taking, the big stuff off the walls and, can leave a lot of your things at the school site. If you're doing that, again, talk to the principal. If you need help loading a car, ask the principal how they would like to give you assistance, whether that's custodial staff assisting or whether it's, hey, if it's at this hour of the day and no one else is here, can my spouse or my friend come help me? Again, I've found most principals to be reasonable. They're trying to set up a general system, but they know it's not always going to perfectly work. So just, they have to set a schedule, but of course I think they also know they're going to need to be flexible in situations outside the norm. So just have the conversation, and if you need us again, we're happy to help you handle it.
So follow-up to that is, must you go into the school and clean up your room?
Okay, so Paula said someone has asked, must you go in and clean up your room? I would say yes, except in very limited circumstances. So let's, just in case you're new to our Facebook Live, we have talked about how all of you under our local ordinance were deemed essential employees. For the most part, all of our teaching staff were and are able to work remotely. But you are all deemed essential employees, meaning you could be called to work. And so in terms of being called to work to do the basics of, shuttering up your room for the summer, yes, you can be called in. However, if you are over 65 or if you have an illness that would, cause a problem, or you're worried in some way about something of that nature, again, reach out to your principal. They have already been, they've already been talked to by HR about not being overly difficult with people who are over 65 or in a vulnerable category of some sort. And so I think they will work with you. But even with working with you, there is the notion, the room's gotta be packed up. And so it's gotta get done. And if the answer is other people have to do it for you, I think you have to, accept what the outcome of that is. If it's not packed the way you want or that type of thing. Again, I would say in most schools I've talked to, principals have been pretty deliberate about how they're doing things. So they're trying to space people out on different wings. And I mean, if you're just in your room by yourself, you should not have a problem. And again, practice social distancing. If you are, if you want to wear masks and gloves, those should be available at every site. And so, you know, you should be as safe as we can make the situation at this point.
Yeah, and I just want to double down on what Stephanie is saying, that if you're asked to clean up your room in 2 hours, I mean, the first thing you're going to do is prioritize what are the important tasks that you need to complete during those 2 hours. Even though you might recognize that you need a lot more time than that, I don't think that many teachers are used to packing up for the year in 2 hours. That being said, I mean, I've talked to members and principals this week, and everybody's been pretty flexible in making sure that people get the time that they need. It might be a 2-hour block this week and another 2-hour block the following week, but you should be able to get the time that you need to get packed up. But we have both, those two questions were on the two extremes. I need a lot more time, or I don't want any time in my room.
Right.
But there's a middle ground there, I think, for everything, is what Stephanie is speaking to. But we do need to come in and get some of that stuff put away.
So we did have an interjection here. Schools
Yeah.
have masks, question mark.
Schools what?
Have masks?
We are told that schools have masks and gloves for everybody that needs them.
And we have also, I mean, we've had a couple situations earlier in the week or end of last week where when we called Chris Farkas and said a particular site didn't have gloves and masks, they got them there that day. So if, you know, please remind your principals if they haven't asked for those items or they need more, they definitely need to be talking to facilities and maintenance.
Okay, so we have a money question. What about next year? Are we looking at cuts or furloughs or any of those things?
The question is about money for next year, for salaries and anything of that nature.
Okay, so complex question where the sort of end result is I don't know the answer today. But let me give you a little bit of thinking and you know, give a couple pieces of information I think we do know. Right now, as you guys know, legislative session ended early this year and education did get money. We got a bump in the base student allocation. They also put specific money into, it was predominantly for raising the beginning teacher salary, but there is some money in there for veteran teachers. It's about three quarters of the money was to raise the beginning and a quarter of the money was for veterans. By the way, just asterisks on this, not the way we would have done it for sure, but it is what it is and that's the money we've gotten. So were that to stay exactly as it is, I think we would be in a pretty good position district-wide. I think there's a couple things that are gonna sort of enter into that mix. While we're not sure whether the legislature is going to have a special session, that possibility exists and many people are calling for it. So if that were to happen, potentially budget things could be altered. Even if that doesn't happen immediately, I think, again, the next couple months in our state are going to be very telling about where we end up. You guys have no doubt seen the headlines of cities and states, you know, looking at bankruptcy and certainly, you know, very serious things. I've not heard as much of that in Florida. It's partly because we live on a shoestring already. And so I think, you know, we're used to that, whereas you guys know in some of the northeastern states, in California and others, people have close to 3 times the amount of per pupil spending we do. And so for them, they've also, a lot of them had much worse cases of COVID-19. I mean, New York, for instance, you guys no doubt know, has been devastated. So I've heard New York talk a lot about potential furloughs and layoff, but certainly constriction of the budget. I mean, they're way out of their budgets, you know, and they partly based on how many cases they've had and the kind of population they have. So, you know, short answer is I think we're going to be okay in this coming year. It may not, depending on what happens, it may not be a big money year in terms of adding to the salary scale, but we certainly at this point don't have any reason to believe that our step movement couldn't occur in either the teacher or ESP, in either of those schedules. I would say, even if for some reason the budget were really constricted, I still don't foresee layoffs and furloughs here in the district, partly because we already have about 800 openings.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, I could see them moving around some things, but I can't see them laying people off. I mean, we need classroom teachers. So we need a lot of our different, groups. We need counselors, we need psychiatrists, psychologists, we need, pretty much everybody. So I don't see layoffs, but again, that stuff can change sort of overnight the way things are going, and so we'll let you know as soon as we know more. But
yeah, there's a lot of variables
Right,
and that we don't have the answers to on all of this. And lawmakers are not even sure whether or not they, as Stephanie said, if they're going to even come back for a special session, because no one's really knowing how deeply impacted the economy will be here in Florida. So we ultimately don't have the answer for you on that. But of course, as Stephanie said, we're optimistic and we feel like we can move forward under these conditions.
which, speaking of where the budget comes in the most most harshly or not, is we have put forward our letter to open negotiations for both our ESP and teacher bargaining units. We did so with a, understanding. We had a deadline to meet of April 30th to, basically put our intent forward. We do realize things are a little bit crazy right now, and so I don't necessarily think we're going to start immediately. And we also have to make some determinations. Are we going to bargain in person with social distance, or are we going to do Zoom meetings? I am not a proponent of bargaining via Zoom. I just think seeing people in a room and being able to read body language and look at responses is a better way to do it for any kind of thing like that. But we'll see. I think we'll know again more in a couple weeks. But we have put the letter forward. Just again as a reminder, since we have you here, it is a book year, meaning the full contract book for our ESPs. For teachers and ESPs, then there is the money portion as well. So.
And we have been having regular Zoom meetings with our ESP committee, going through every component of the ESP contract and kind of working on that language, so that way we are, as a bargaining team, ready when we're ready to open up the books for ESPs. So
Yeah.
I appreciate the ESPs that have served on that committee. Paula, any other questions?
Oh, of course we have more
Good.
questions. So there's a question, they've heard that the quarter 3 grade is not allowed to be lower, the quarter 4 is not allowed to be lower than the quarter 3.
They've heard that the quarter 4 grade does not have to be lower than
Not allowed, not just that.
not allowed.
Yes, you can't.
You can't give a grade lower than the third 9 weeks grade for the fourth 9 weeks. That is,
Not true. Just not.
that's fiction. No.
Fiction.
I mean, you as the teacher, once again, control the grades that you assign. So it is very plausible that a student has not done as well this 9 weeks as they have in the past. So you would have a grade that reflects exactly that. So if you are being told that you cannot give a grade lower than the third 9 weeks, that is false, and we need to help you correct that. So that's something where you're going to help, and you're going to call our office during school hours so that way we can help you out. That should not be happening.
Okay, so there's a little bit of a timeline question, a couple of them related. When do students have to return the devices that they borrowed, and what's the timeline to turn around for them to turn in work and then do report cards for teachers?
That's
It is, I mean, to our knowledge, we are not changing any of the report card timelines. So you have 5 days from the end of school to do, or end of the quarter to do that. And they have put out, I don't have them in front of me, but I did see something on the district website about what looked to me like regular report card due dates. And so I don't see, nobody has talked to us about extending the time kids can put, hand in work. So let's assume, as Rob talked about earlier, the last time you're going to get work is the last student day. Some of you may set different deadlines and you're free to do that. Again, keeping in mind, we do think you should be as flexible as possible in our current circumstance. But we know of nothing to change your normal time to do report cards or extension of the school year.
And I believe that each school is coming up with their own plan on when kids are giving back returning the materials such as the laptops. And I don't know how that would affect exactly what you do in the classroom, but I imagine that I would hope that that's a conversation that you're having with your PLC and at your school site about how you're going to handle that in terms of once the kids no longer have those laptops.
Okay. Is any of this going to impact folks that are in drop?
Is this going to impact people that are in drop, meaning?
Is any of this weirdness?
Not to our knowledge, and in fact, just as an aside, we have asked in the past, the district has the ability to extend the drop deadline, not by much, by I think up to 2 years they can extend it, and we've asked to extend it for people for a couple months. For instance, for a teacher who was scheduled to leave in March and said they would be more than willing to finish the year to be with their students. We haven't even had them extend the drop deadline in those circumstances. We've asked them to extend it with the shortages. Again, so far they haven't been amenable to that, but we certainly can ask again. But barring us telling you they've opened up drop extensions, drop would have no impact. Your retirement date remains what it would have been.
Okay, we sneak this one in here. So we have a question. Are there any thoughts on DeSantis stating that those over 60 should not return to school next year? I haven't heard that, but apparently someone has.
The question is, do we have a comment about DeSantis saying that nobody over 60 should, what was that, return to school next year? I didn't hear him say that, actually.
I haven't heard him say that
He does
either.
say a lot about crazy things.
It could be, first of all, I would just say, look, CDC guidelines use 65 as the dividing line, so why anybody would sort of randomly pick 60 is, I don't know why they would do that. I do think, look, as we go back to school, and it does look like the inclination is going to be to open our brick and mortar sites, I would be remiss to not tell any of you who have some concern, whether it's just your own personal concern and comfort level, to the fact that you're under treatment for cancer or you're older, whatever the issue might be. All of us, I think, have to ask those questions of ourselves and see if there's a different circumstance we'd feel more comfortable in. We do plan to explore with the superintendent whether, Hillsborough Virtual, which is our local virtual program, where, by the way, it is not Florida Virtual. At Hillsborough Virtual, people can all be members of the union. But talking to him about whether we think there's going to be some expansion in Hillsborough Virtual, and potentially having some of that expansion be for some of our people who might not be able to return safely to a classroom. But beyond that, I don't know. I didn't hear the 60 comment.
I did not either, but apparently some folks have.
But I just will shake my head.
Okay. So then the next question that follows up on that beautifully is, so what is next year going to look like?
So what is next year going to look like? Yeah, I'm just repeating your question. I'm not sure that they can hear you. Ultimately, we don't know. We are working with our state union. We're going to be working with the FEA on creating a union-based plan of what it should look like when we go back. But obviously, once again, there are so many variables, and we don't know where we're just in phase one, as Governor DeSantis is calling it, of how many phases? 55 phases?
Yeah, for the 3 or 55.
So once we get there, I mean, we can't answer that question now. We don't know what it's going to look like. But we do know that getting teachers and students back to our brick and mortar is our number one concern. We want that we know that that's what students want. We know that's what teachers want. And
some of you may have seen AFT put out a plan. It's a white paper. It's probably 22, 23 pages. Rob is on a committee working specifically with Randy Weingarten and others on that. And so we will likely be we'll be doing some more on that in the near future in terms of what safe plans would look like. And also getting your feedback on what safety looks like for you, because it may look different for those of us across the board. And we certainly want to have conversations with the district about, I don't know how many times in my life I've brought door prizes to schools that are like soap and paper towels. So we do want to make sure schools are ordering enough to have more frequent hand washing, to have more, non-touch hand sanitizer stations, some of the basics. And so I've got to call into some of our facilities folks on things like that. But I expect it'll be a lot of different pieces.
I'll make sure that the AFT plan is sent out in our next newsletter in case you have not seen it for members. And then I'll also report on what we're doing statewide with FEA, as I'm serving on the state committee with President Ingram.
I can put that on our website.
Okay, and
Yeah.
Paula's going to put it right on our website, the AFT plan.
Okay, so I have a question. I'm not sure I understand this whole intent, but how do principals receive communication about how grades are given? I heard we can't change them.
Okay, the question is how are principals communicated about grades?
Yes, and then the question mark in my mind is I heard we can't change them. I don't.
I heard they can't change it. Well,
No, we can't change them, so.
well, we were actually just on a call right before we came on Facebook Live saying that there was a conversation had with principals talking about, once again, that classroom teachers get to assign grades. And the expectation from the district is that we are doing our jobs, meeting the needs of the kids and trying to find ways to help them, but we ultimately assign grades. So I think that we've handled that, and from what we're told, Stephanie, right in the call just earlier, was that principals were told again today that teachers have full control over their grades that they assign.
Right.
So no one could force you to say, hey, that kid cannot fail. If you, as the professional in the classroom, have decided based upon the work that's been offered and what they've been able to do that they could not pass, then that is the grade that you can assign. I just want to reiterate that. I'm once again, I always want to counter that with, but I know that we're doing everything that we can to make sure that that kid has every opportunity to pass. That's what we should be doing, finding ways to meet the needs of that kid, whatever that might be. That depends on what you teach.
But yeah, in terms of how principals receive communications, I guess again, short answer, that's not our purview. I assume the acting chief of schools sends them a number of things. I think you all have seen that our new superintendent, Mr. Davis, is communicative and sends a lot of emails, and so I'd assume principals are hearing about things from him as well. There's a number of members now on his staff from his transition team. I'd expect they're getting communication there. But again, look, we literally are in contact with the district pretty much every hour of every day on something. And so, and sometimes we're dealing with one site, but sometimes we're dealing with many of you calling in on the same issue. So sometimes when we resolve an issue or bring clarity, the thing I always wonder is how does that clarity then get pushed out to principals? And so sometimes I think that's where we sometimes have a little bit of a communication blip. But again, I would just encourage you, if anyone at your school, if you are getting pressure to not fail any students, if you're getting pressure to change grades, please do contact us. That is not what's supposed to happen. That's not, you know, what I believe the superintendent wants to see happen. And we were on a call today with the head of secondary and middle school education, and that's not what they want to see happen. Again, Rob is correct. We all believe in being as flexible as possible in what is an unprecedented circumstance, but it doesn't mean that there are kids that won't do so little or nothing at all that they've earned a failing grade. And if we've tried to reach out to them in every way possible and they're still there, that's the place they've earned.
So for veterans, are we trying to get paid for our next year, for our next step in the pay scale for this coming year? I think they're asking, are we going to add another step?
Well, Paul asked a question, and I'm not clear whether it's, are we going to add another set of steps, or are we going to try to just get everyone step movement? So step movement is fairly automatic in our contract. So I would expect that happens unless there is some financial exigent circumstances. And like I said, right now, we're not hearing that's gonna be the case. So in terms of step movement, I would expect that. In terms of adding another step or 2 or 3, we have talked about that. I mean, here, I am not a proponent of having 30 step scales. The shorter a scale is, the better it is financially for you. I know some of you don't like the notion of staying at the same salary for 10 years, but sometimes the other option is you know, have to step $100 here, $100 there to get to the top over 30 years, which isn't really what we want to see financially either. And so, you know, we certainly will look at it. I don't think we'd add a lot of steps. And again, this is one, I don't know where our current superintendent is going to stand, because we haven't been to the bargaining table with him yet. So we'll see.
Okay, when will the training begin for Canvas? We've heard it's rolling out in July.
The question is, when will we have the training for Canvas that is rolling out in July? We're making sure that we want to make sure exactly what's going to be occurring next year at the sites in terms of Canvas with EDSB. Once we have full clarity on that, I know that our members, we're going to offer a training for Canvas here through HCTA for Canvas as well as the district. So once we know for sure what's happening, we will make plans accordingly, and then we will offer you guys, our members, opportunities to be trained by a union trainer. That I have a couple of people in the district that are members that have actually worked with Canvas from other districts, and we're already working with them to kind of put together a training. So we're ahead of it, but we don't want to put it out until we know for sure and are certain that that's what we're going to be using. Once we have that, then we will roll that out. I hope that is as clear as mud of an answer, but
yeah,
we're working on it for you, but we want to make sure that we know what's going to happen first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can a middle school ESE teacher lose their position if they don't get reading endorsed? They don't teach reading.
You should not lose your position in that case. However, some of these things are hard for us to answer without knowing the exact circumstance or all of the variables. So so please call your CTA rep so that we can make sure we have all the pertinent information.
And FEA is still looking to get the reading endorsement timeline increased for everybody in the state. They're not quite there yet. They were hoping to hear from the DOE today, but I did not get a call back from FEA. We do have until the end of December now to get your certification done. So if you were due on June 30th of this year, you've been given an extra 6 months to get that done. And don't forget, you also have the opportunity to take an exam for free through the state. So you should be signing up for that now, because they'll schedule you for that, whatever test that you want to take later on. I think that covers that.
That's the last question that has been raised.
Well, Rob, we
Yeah.
should definitely do some fun and excitement.
Hello world is a song that we're singing.
I don't think I'm
Come
gonna
on,
sing
get
the Partridge
happy.
Family. Just because what goes on the internet is never going to leave.
Oh,
And
boy.
So, but yes, we're of the Partridge Family generation, Rob and I. So,
Oh, is that what that's from? It is.
Isn't it from?
It is.
Yeah, it is
Yeah, it's the Partridge
Yeah.
Family.
It is
So,
the Partridge Family.
I don't have anything fitting for the Partridge Family right here, but I do have
A buzz.
two $25 Wawa gift cards that we're gonna mail to you if you are a part of our lucky drawing. And we're drawing things in two ways today. We had a number of you, we put out in the last newsletter, if you liked our YouTube channel. And we can, by the way, some of you keep your stuff secret, so if you like our YouTube channel but it isn't public, unfortunately we can't tell you liked it. But if you liked our YouTube channel in the last week, you are entered. And we are also doing some extra drawings for things for people joining the live today. Or we did it from the list of people who said they were going to attend the live today.
So how do you, I have a list of winners.
So we have a list of winners. So first two winners are gonna get a Wawa gift card.
Wow.
Wow,
We
wow.
have that for Nichelle Neal and Anne-Marie McNamara.
Woohoo!
Congratulations and thank you again for everything that you do.
Oh, I should have had a party one.
I know,
Yeah.
we should add a party horn. Our next two gift cards are $25 for Chili's Macaroni Grill Maggiano's. So when you can eat out again, you can go and do that.
Or you can go pick it up.
Or you can go pick it to go. You can take it to go.
Those two winners are Dana Greenblatt and Kansas Minzy.
All right.
Congratulations and thank you.
Yay.
Yay! Party.
And our next two are, these are from a different restaurant chain, Bonefish, Outback, Carrabba's, Fleming's, two $25 gift cards here.
And our winners are Betsy Ellinger and Patty Husbands. Congratulations.
All right, yay. And our last one is a $10 Wawa gift card.
Wow. And that is for Rebecca Morris.
Woo!
Congratulations.
Go winner, go winner.
Uh,
There you go.
oh,
we go.
all
We got
right,
those-
we got the party. We got the
Our
party.
cameraman's got a squeak toy.
All right. So our last thing, we have 7 winners who are going to get an HCTA pop socket. for
Pop
your
socket.
phone.
Isn't that
Different commercial,
Yeah.
Robert. But the next 7 people, we're going to send you an HCTA pop socket.
Pop socket. We have Pamela Whitlack,
Woo!
Delma White,
Yay!
Yvette Silverman,
Woo!
Lori Green,
Yay!
Colette Baker,
Yay!
Tracy Loomis,
Yay!
and Cynthia Leaks.
Woo-hoo!
Woo! All right.
We want to thank all of you for being here. A very happy Teacher Appreciation Day. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. We very much appreciate everything that you do, your flexibility, your creativity, and the hard work that you've put into making e-learning an amazing experience here in Hillsborough County. So thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.
Take care.